From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm Vasilios. That is Sean Fazan. Remember to like, subscribe, rate, and review. You can find us wherever you listen to and watch your podcast. And if you happen to be watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the little bell notification button. You get a notification every time we upload a new podcast. Sean, Victory Monday, the first one of the season.
Victory Monday sure does feel good in the city when it's a victory on a Monday, when the Saints get that W, especially when it starts with the season opener. They come out 1-0. It's a little different vibe when you have that Saints win. So, yeah, it was good to get up this morning. It was good to get to work knowing I was going to break down a game where the Saints got the win.
So, obviously, the Saints win 16-15 against the Tennessee Titans right here in the Superdome. What are your first impressions on that victory, and what did it mean to the Saints?
Yeah, I'm going to go big picture first because it's what I do. Overall theme was this. Watching it live, then watching it again. It was not perfect. It was not always pretty. But in the end, the team that played the best and the team that coached the best got the win. The Saints are 1-0. They deserve to be 1-0. They have an absolute ton to work on, but they played a very tough opponent, and they outplayed them, they outcoached them, and they beat them. It doesn't mean it was easy, because it was not, and it doesn't mean they didn't have their own share of mistakes, but as we sit here on this Monday, unlike last year when they won the season opener where it kind of felt like they kind of stole one late, this felt like a well-earned victory despite some flaws in their game. But guess what? In week one, you want to have flaws. You do not want to be peaking in September. So I thought overall a total team effort. I mean, it really was a total team effort, offense, defense, and special teams. But the team that deserved to win won the game. The Saints earned their first victory of the season, and they go on from here because get that first one, and then we'll see what happens next Monday in Carolina.
Now, one of the biggest storylines, Derek Carr starting for the Saints. What did you see from QB1? What did you think of his debut in black and gold?
Well, look, I'm one of those guys. I follow the quarterbacks. It's what I do. It's just when I gravitate to the game of football, that's who I follow first. And they're the ones that it all kind of revolves around. And when we spoke so much about Derek Carr leading up to his potential trade here, then his actual signing here, then I made sure to make him a topic on this podcast so often because he was that important to the organization in terms of just the big picture and really just the whole organizational confidence. So week one, I'm actually bumping up my grade on him when I saw live, and then when I went back and rewatched it again, I left the game feeling like solid Derek Carr outing, a solid B in his effort live watching Tennessee, him play against Tennessee, and I went back and rewatched it. I'm bumping that up to a B+. I'm not giving him an A- or an A or A+ because there was some mistakes. Obviously, the interception was a boneheaded throw, but I thought overall he played really, really well. And when you go back and watch it, he did a lot of the things that don't always show up on the stat sheet, and yet his stats were good, other than the one interception. Was it just over 300 yards passing? So he was a guy that high expectations for, high hopes for, and I thought he delivered. The one physical trait that he shares with Drew Brees, and this was evident watching the tape, his pocket mobility is fantastic. There's a difference between mobility, that traditional mobility that we think of, a guy that can just take off and run, your guy in Baltimore, and there's a difference between that and pocket mobility, a guy that knows when to climb, knows when to flush outside the pocket, knows when to just slide a little bit to his left, slide a little bit to his right to create some windows, break out when he feels pressure from the backside. He does that as good as Drew. That was Drew's most underrated quality, was just how mobile he was within the pocket and how much pocket presence he had. His footwork was flawless. Derek Carr is on that level, and it showed up quite a bit.
That's lofty talk right there.
Look, I'm not talking about his accuracy or his prolific nature in terms of throwing the ball, but footwork, that's as close to Drew as you're going to find, not just because he plays for the Saints, but because if you just watch NFL football, like the way NFL quarterbacks are coached, he certainly has that ability and that trait. That really, really jumped out on the tape. And look, Carr, like we said before, this is a big theme. They weren't perfect, but he made the plays when he had to. Mm-hmm. He made the throws when he absolutely had to make them. He was under duress a lot. He probably prevented. It probably could have been a lot more catastrophe in the pass rush from Tennessee had he not had that pocket mobility as we were talking about. But he also delivered, man. That third down throw to Rashid Shaheed for the touchdown first was fantastic. He gave the head fake and threw it up. And look, that was when they got gifted that field position based off that interception by Paulson Adebo. But he delivered. Saw the moment, was able to deliver. And then that third down throw to Rashid, it was just fantastic. I mean, he just let it rip. And that's 3rd and 6 from, I don't know where they were, like their own like 28 or something like that. I'm not sure exactly where they were.
I should know. I did the film stuff.
And I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but no one on Tennessee saw that coming. And it's a daring call to make. And they made it, and they executed it, and they trusted Derek Carr. Derek Carr trusts his coordinator. He trusted his young second-year wide receiver who opened the game with disaster, but yet rebounded and regrouped and played some incredible football to close things out. So I thought Derek Carr made the plays when he had to make them. And going back and watching the whole offensive output again, I don't think people realize how many chunk plays they had.
No, they
plays that were over 20-plus yards. I mean, they opened with it to Michael Thomas. There was a throw to Juwan Johnson in the game, a short throw that broke open based off man coverage, a throw to Chris Olave like that where, again, pocket presence. And that point, Derek Carr is patient and goes over the top on an over route to Chris Olave. There's the big 41-yard. That doesn't even include the touchdown throw to Shaheed because technically it was 19. I think they were at the 19-yard line. But 5, 6, whatever, chunk plays, that made a huge difference offensively. And frankly, that's different than what they've seen in the last couple seasons, the ability to work the middle of the field and get those chunk plays. And sometimes a chunk play isn't just throw it deep. Sometimes a chunk play is staying an extra count into the pocket, letting a slant route kind of clear a little bit because there's man coverage in the middle of the field. The guy working in the middle of the field is going to eventually vacate that space, and you put it on a dime, and you just let the guy catch it and run, and there's nothing but green grass in front of him. That's what happened on the Juwan Johnson play.
Yeah.
So there's different ways to get chunk plays. So I thought that was a huge difference in the game, and Derek Carr executed it. So, again, I'm bumping up his grade. I had it as a solid B. I'm giving him a B+ after that effort.
Well, Derek Carr wasn't perfect, like you say, and I mean at that rate, neither was the guy protecting his blind side and Trevor Penning. How do you think he performed? I mean, he obviously had a slow start to the game, kind of leveled out as the game went on. But thoughts on Trevor Penning?
Okay, he was put on an island. And now that the emotion has subsided a little bit, I was able to kind of go back and watch it with a clear head, clear objective lens to see what exactly happened. He had 4 disaster snaps in the first half. 4. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4. Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4. Disaster. 2 sacks, a complete whiff on a run block that led to a TFL. And then that very, very, very fortunate play that probably should have been ruled a fumble where Derek Carr got swiped as he was throwing it was Arden Key. It was absolute disaster in the first half. They regrouped in the second half. He got a little bit better. They gave him some more help, which they were way too late in giving him help. It was not until the back end of the second quarter that they finally give him some help with chipping with tight ends and or running backs or big receivers. But he wasn't the only one that struggled up front. That's a good front. But Trevor Penning right now remains the biggest unanswered question on this team in terms of he has got to elevate his play somehow, some kind of way. If you're the Saints, if you're going to stick with him, you got to have a plan. You can't just leave him on an island. He's not ready for that just yet. You can mix it up. Maybe a couple pass plays he has help, a couple pass plays he doesn't. But the way they left him on an island very early in that game, it could have cost him. It could have cost them dearly. Had it not been ruled incomplete on the field when it happened, that would have been a fumble and likely a scoop and score because if you guys remember back in 2019, Cam Jordan was in the same situation. The referee is supposed to let that play run out and get to the replay. Don't call it incomplete on the field. Call it a fumble and then go back to replay to confirm it. Saints got real lucky there. Real fortunate right there. So Trevor Penning, it's a lot on him. It's a little bit on the coaches as well. And they were able to run the ball in the second half to help offset it a little bit, but he remains the biggest unanswered question on this entire team right now. So that's something to clearly watch going forward if you're the Saints.
So we talked Carr, we talked Trevor Penning. You've been up to your eyeballs in film today, Sean. What else has popped out for you off the tape here?
Well, I'm giving some game balls to the Saints play callers. The Saints play callers both on offense and on defense. Pete Carmichael, who took a lot of heat last year, was fantastic. Fantastic in this game. That third down call, what is a great play call? A great play call is a call that you make in a game, in a timely situation, that the defense has no idea it's coming, and you execute it flawlessly. You call it the right time. That's the 3rd and 6 play that essentially iced the game. If you watch the way they're playing at the sticks, Christian Fulton, and the deep safety is about 10 yards off the line of scrimmage. They weren't playing that deep. They, under no circumstances, did they think they were going to go up the sideline on that play. They dialed it up. They executed it. A fantastic play call, whether it was a mutual agreement on the play call, whether it was all Pete, whether it was all Derek, who cares? Pete's getting credit for it on this podcast. Hit a couple plays where they put Chris Olave in the backfield. It didn't work once, but the other 2 times it did, led to big plays because he got matched up on a safety and matched up on a linebacker. I thought Pete Carmichael had a really good day, and he was a guy that took a lot of heat last year. But I've said this before, coordinator-quarterback chemistry is of immense importance, especially when you have the personality that Pete Carmichael has. And I think he's got good chemistry with Derek Carr. Dennis Allen, I think he called the plays defensively. I'm going to assume he did. Absolute genius third down plan. Absolute genius third down plan. We didn't talk a lot about the third downs in last night.
Yeah.
They were 2 for 12, and I think they missed their first 9 third down plays. They had a couple PIs that extended drives, but technically, I think they missed their first 9 third downs. DA did a masterful job of mixing in personnel groups, dime or nickel, and then the coverages. On those first 9, 5 different coverages. And normally DA is a guy that sticks. I don't get 2 X's and O's on you guys, but he's a guy that sticks with that dime grouping, and they go what's called 2-man coverage, and that's generally what he does. But he mixed in 5 different coverages, and it really threw off Ryan Tannehill. And look, the defensive effort speaks for itself. I mean, a fantastic effort by the Saints defense. They are the biggest reason why they're 1-0. Those 3 takeaways were absolutely huge, and they needed every single one of them. Every single play made in that game, the Saints needed all of it. And defensively, they really shine. The Saints receivers the Saints secondary against their receivers, the Saints secondary owned that matchup.
That was a fun matchup to watch.
I mean, owned that matchup. Marshawn Lattimore looked elite. Debo looked good as well. Even Alontae Taylor, who kicked inside, had his moments. Now, look, other than DeAndre Hopkins, who's getting up there in age, I don't think they had anybody that scares you on the edge. And I think that became pretty evident in that game. But the Saints secondary is here, and they're here to play. And it's going to take a very good, very deep wide receiver core to match up better than the Saints secondary.
And they're not going to see that next week when they go to Carolina, that's for sure. But sticking with football, obviously we're going to move off the Saints for a second here. Similar to what we did last week on Monday. Let's talk LSU and Tulane. We're going to start off with the Tigers. Got that 72-10 win against Grambling. We saw that coming, right?
We saw it coming. You knew they were going to regroup. You knew they were going to rally. I watched a little bit of it, but the game got out of hand fairly quickly. I know there was some issues early with some secondary issues. As much as we love the Saints secondary, LSU secondary still has some work to do. We'll find out how much better they got or what they'll really do next week or this weekend, obviously, against Mississippi State on the road. But they did what they had to do. They got the win against an inferior opponent, and I think Jay Daniels finished 5 touchdowns. I think it's what they needed. get the stain a little bit of week 1 off, but everyone understands. This is congratulations, but you got to get into the SEC and do it when it really, really, really steps up in competition.
This is what all those folks that you were talking about in your final say last week, this is what they wanted their week 1 matchup to be.
That's what they wanted their week 1 matchup to be. Sorry, I know you guys don't like that, but there's some people out there that wanted to basically let's have a soft opponent week 1. You're LSU. Florida State had to prepare for you just as much as you had to prepare for them. They were ready. You weren't. You're LSU. Act like it. So I think all in all, a good bounce back game, but they're not fully back yet, and I think everyone understands that.
Right. And wanted to head uptown now, talk some Tulane. Obviously, they had Ole Miss come in this weekend. I can't tell you how surprised I was when I woke up on Saturday morning and I saw Tulane quarterback Michael Pratt will not play today. And I'm like, oh boy, here comes Kai Horton. And I was pleasantly surprised with the first half from Tulane, but I mean, things kind of fell apart in the second half.
Yeah, he's got some traits that you like, and I think with some seasoning and some repetition, he can be a quality quarterback at Tulane. But I thought the difference in the game was the quarterback.
Yeah.
And that's not really knocking him, but he's the number 2 guy for a reason, and they played against a quality SEC opponent and really hung in that first half. It got away from him in the third and fourth quarter. But when you total that game out, Pratt's presence makes a difference, a big difference. Maybe they win. You don't know. I think they keep it close.
Yeah.
I think they really keep it close. It was close as it was. I thought Willie Fritz called for that onside kick a little too early in the fourth quarter when they had their timeouts. I thought that was a little bit of a panic move. But other than that, they competed. They did what they had to do. Campus was up for it. The stands were certainly up for it. I have been very, very, very critical of Tulane attendance in the past, so I'm giving them their due last couple of weeks. So, but in the end, Ole Miss, the better team and the better quarterback, rallied and got them the victory. I think they ended up covering. Is that right? I think the spread jumped to right before kickoff because Michael Pratt was out. But look, tough break for Tulane to not have Michael Pratt. But we said it on this podcast last week. Michael Pratt, you can't take ridiculous hits. There was no reason for him to take that hit when he took it, and the way he took it, that was so avoidable. And you lost the game because of it. Had he been there, I think they're battling.
I think they would have won.
I think they battle, and maybe they win that game. Because I think Lane Kiffin was a little concerned about their skill, and I think it was a sigh of relief when he saw Michael Pratt wasn't playing, but Kai Horton came out guns a-blazing. But look, he's not there yet.
Kai Horton's no slouch.
No, and I think he's going to be a quality quarterback at Tulane. He's just not there yet.
Let's remember what he did last year when they were playing Houston.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, he played very well against Houston.
He's a good player. But for Tulane to get back to remain the AAC, the top of the AAC, they need Michael Pratt to get them there.
100%.
And hopefully he's back because he's a fantastic player, and he's got some a pro resume to fill out, which a great senior year could really help his draft stock because I think he's going to play at the next level.
I agree. Any final thoughts from a very lively weekend of football now that we got college and pro ball back?
Fantastic. I love it. It's been a great weekend. It was just a great like Friday into Saturday, Saturday into Sunday, and now Sunday into Monday. Football's back, baby. I love it. Also, got to give a shout out to the Superdome crowd. They were awesome. I mean, 4 false start penalties. Woo. 4 false start penalties. They were awesome, the Superdome crowd last on Sunday. So they were great. Now the Saints go on the road. We'll see what happens. And then LSU and Tulane, we'll see what happens with them as well. But I thought it was a fantastic football weekend. It's a shame Tulane couldn't get the job done, but I think they earned some respect, no doubt about it.
All right, you guys heard it here. For Sean Fazan, I'm Vasilios. Remember to like, subscribe, rate, and review. You can find us wherever you listen to and watch your podcast. This has been the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. We'll catch you guys next time.